Use a 21mm socket, take the lug nuts off, and take the wheel off. Loosen up this jam nut. You can use a 24mm wrench or 15/16. Loosen that one turn. Take some side cutters and remove the cotter pin. Just got to bend it back a little bit. Bend it up. And try to push it through. Grab it from the other side. You could always use a pick. There we go. You can pull the caliper off if it's in your way, if you want to get a socket on here, or you can use a 19mm wrench. And take this nut off. And there's different types of tie rod removal tools you can use. There's a lot of front end tools that, again, if you had the caliper on, you probably wouldn't be able to use that. You can try giving a tap right here. You just want to be careful. You don't want to break the knuckle. Or you can use a pickle fork. The only problem with using a pickle fork is you're going to end up ripping the boot. And if you're replacing the tie rod anyway, it doesn't matter. So we'll use a pickle fork. And remove the outer tie rod. Count the turns when you remove it. So that was 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, 15. So that was 15 turns. Write that number down somewhere. And you can use some locking pliers on the inner tie rod end, right about there. Use a 24mm socket, take this nut off. Then you can take the locking pliers off. And take some hose clamp pliers and take this hose clamp off, right there. Now on the inside of the boot there is a clamp. We need to take that off. You can take a straight pick. If you get that clamp off, just get in right there. And just try to stretch it out a little bit. If it doesn't break and you have the ability to reuse it, you can. Once you stretch that out, you should be able to pull the boot off and just slide the boot off completely. Might have to get underneath here a little bit. You don't want to rip the boot. There we go. And just slide it off like that. There's the clamp. So you just want to spread that area right there. Now you need an inner tie rod tool. Find the adapter that fits. And slide this over. There we go. And on the inside, you want to take some locking pliers. Get it as close to the inner tie rod as possible. And this is just going to prevent the shaft of the steering shaft from twisting when you're loosening this up. It just prevents damage from inside the steering rack. And just make sure it is as close to the tie rod as possible because you don't want to mar up the steering shaft. Now while holding those locking pliers and loosening up with the tool, loosen it up. Normally after you break it free, it comes off pretty easily, just like that. And I take the new inner tie rod in. You can put a little thread lock adhesive on the threads. And tighten this down. And just snug this up. Nice and tight. Remove the tool. Remove the locking pliers. There's a little area on the inner tie rod. You just take a punch and you're gonna punch it in where there's the notch for the steering. That's just going to prevent it from loosening up. If when you were taking this off, if you were struggling to take it off, you can punch that little area. But for the most part, it'll probably just break off when you go to loosen it. So we'll take a little punch and a hammer and just give it a tap. Just like that. That's good. Take the little grease packet and you can just put some lubrication just around here. And just move this around a little bit. Spread it around. That's good. And then put some right here. This is going to make it easier for when the boot is on, for the boot to twist. Just put a nice thin coat there. That's good. Now take the boot. If the clamp isn't going to work for you, you can take that off. You can always use a wire tie and just tighten it up real tight. And just slide this in position. And make sure the inner part goes over the rack. If you get that clamp on, you're going to have to use these special pliers. And just try to slide them in there the best you can. And squeeze it. And that's nice and tight. Now take the hose clamp pliers and the hose clamp. Line that up. Slide that over. That's good. Put the jam nut on. Now install the outer tie rod in and make sure you count the threads. So 1, 2, 3, 13, 14, 15. And slide it into the knuckle. Get that lined up. Take the nut. Get that started. If you want, you can take a pry bar and just pry in between the tie rod and the lower control arm, or you can use a screw jack. Just tighten this down. This is just going to prevent the stud from spinning while you're tightening down the nut. Just put a little bit of pressure on there, not too much. And you can tighten this nut down. And if you have the ability to put a torque wrench on here, you can torque that nut to 32 foot-pounds. If not, do the best you can. Now I can lower the screw jack or pull jack and tighten up the jam nut. If you can get a torque wrench on here, torque this to 37 foot-pounds. If not, do the best you can. Put the tire on. And the lug nuts. Now I'm going to torque the lug nuts down to 80 foot-pounds in a cross pattern to tighten the wheel down evenly. We'll just go around again, double check. After you're done this job, keep in mind you need to bring the vehicle to a local shop and have it aligned. You don't want to have premature tire wear.